My mother laughed directly in my face, her voice dripping with a kind of cruel satisfaction as she watched me pack the last of my things into a single, battered suitcase. She leaned against the doorframe of my childhood bedroom, crossed her arms, and said, "Good luck surviving without me. You're going to be begging to come back within a week when you realize you can't even afford a loaf of bread." She really thought she had destroyed me, that by kicking me out on my 20th birthday with nothing but $50 in my pocket, she had finally won some twisted game of control she'd been playing since I was a child. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have guessed, was that while she was busy laughing at my struggle, I had already found the secret account she'd been hiding for nearly 2 decades. I found $27,000 that was legally mine, and it was about to change everything. Was I wrong for taking the money and disappearing without a word? Or would you have done the exact same thing if your own mother tried to ruin your life? I need you to listen to how this all started because, looking back, the signs of her manipulation were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. My mother, Elena, was the kind of person who viewed children not as individuals, but as long-term investments or personal property. My father left when I was 3, and from that moment on, it was just the two of us against a world she convinced me was out to get us. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to have friends over. I wasn't allowed to participate in after-school sports, and every penny I earned from paper routes or summer jobs had to be handed over to her for safekeeping. She told me she was putting it in a college fund, but whenever I asked to see the balance or the bank statements, she would turn into a martyr, crying about how I didn't trust her. After everything she had sacrificed to raise me alone, I felt so guilty that I'd end up apologizing for even asking. By the time I graduated high school, she told me the fund had been used up to pay for household emergencies, like the roof repair and her medical bills that I never actually saw. I ended up working 2 jobs at a local diner and a grocery store just to pay for community college while she sat at home claiming her back pain prevented her from working, even though I'd see her out gardening or dancing in the kitchen when she thought I wasn't looking. The tension reached a breaking point about 6 months ago. I had managed to save up a little bit of money in a private account she didn't know about. At least, I thought she didn't. One day, I came home to find her sitting at the kitchen table with my bank card and a printed statement. She had gone through my room, found the hidden card, and was livid that I had stolen from the family by not giving her my full paycheck. She demanded I hand over the password to the account so she could manage it. When I refused, she didn't scream. She just got this cold, calculated look in her eyes. Over the next few weeks, things in the house started disappearing. My laptop, my favorite shoes, even my textbooks. She claimed we must have been robbed, but I knew better. She was selling my things to punish me for my independence. The final straw came last Tuesday. I had finally finished my associate's degree and landed a decent, paying internship. Instead of being proud, she was terrified. She knew that if I had a real career, she would lose her meal ticket. We had a massive blow-out argument where she accused me of being an ungrateful brat who owed her my very life. She told me that since I was so independent, I could find a new place to live by the end of the week. She was so sure I would fail because she had spent years sabotaging my self-esteem. The day I was supposed to leave, I was frantically looking for my birth certificate and social security card in her home office. She was out celebrating her freedom at a brunch with her sisters, and I knew this was my only chance to find my documents. I was tearing through her filing cabinet when I found a locked metal box hidden behind a false back in the bottom drawer. I've always been good with puzzles, and it took me 20 minutes of fiddling with a paperclip and a small screwdriver to pop the lock. Inside wasn't just my birth certificate. There were stacks of papers regarding a life insurance policy from my paternal grandfather who had passed away when I was 5. My father had set up a trust for me, naming me as the sole beneficiary, with my mother as the custodian until I turned 18. There were bank statements showing that the initial $10,000 had grown through smart investments over 15 years. My mother had never told me about it. In fact, she had been making small, unauthorized withdrawals for years, but the bulk of it, $7,482, was still there in an account under my name. She had forged my signature on documents to keep mail going to a P.O. box I never knew existed. I was shaking, my heart hammering against my ribs. She had been watching me struggle, watching me skip meals to pay for textbooks, all while she sat on a small fortune that belonged to me. I didn't waste a second. I took the documents, grabbed my suitcase, and headed straight to the bank branch listed on the statement. I was terrified she might have flagged the account or that the bank wouldn't believe me. But when I sat down with the manager and showed them my ID and the original trust documents, their face went pale. They saw the discrepancies in the signatures from the recent custodian filings. Because the account was legally mine and I was well over 18, they were able to freeze her access immediately and transfer the entire balance into a new, secure account that only I could touch. I walked out of that bank a completely different person. I went back to the house one last time to get the very last of my things before she got home from brunch. I was standing in the driveway, loading my suitcase into my old car, when she pulled up. She had this smug, hateful grin on her face. She didn't know I'd been to the bank. She didn't know I knew her secret. She just stood there and gave me that line about not being able to survive without her. She laughed, a high-pitched, mocking sound that echoed in the quiet street. "You'll be back," she sneered, "and when you come crawling back, the rent is going up." So, that is the situation I found myself in. I was standing there with the power to ruin her entire lifestyle, knowing she had stolen from me for years and planned to let me starve just to keep me under her thumb. Before I tell you how I responded to her laughter and what the fallout was, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done? Would you have confronted her right there on the driveway, or would you have just driven away? Would you have called the police for the forged signatures, or just taken the money and run? I really want to know if you think I was being too cold, or if she got exactly what she deserved. I looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid. I didn't feel the need to argue or defend myself. I just reached into my pocket, pulled out the receipt from the bank showing the $27,000 transfer, and handed it to her. Her eyes scanned the paper, and I watched the color drain from her face until she looked like a ghost. Her hands started to tremble, and she looked up at me, her mouth hanging open. How did you find that?" she whispered. I didn't answer her. I just said, "I know about the forgery, Mom. I know about the P.O. box, and I know that this money was supposed to be for my future, not your back pain and your brunch dates." She immediately tried to pivot into victim mode, grabbing my arm and telling me she did it to protect me, that I wasn't responsible enough to handle that much money, that she was going to give it me eventually. I just shook her off. I told her that if she ever contacted me again, or if she tried to contest the bank's decision, I would take every single forged document I found in that metal box straight to the police. I told her she had until the end of the month to find a job because I was done paying her bills. I got into my car and drove away while she was still standing in the middle of the driveway, screaming that I was an ungrateful child and that she gave me life. It's been 3 months since that day. I used some of the money to move into a small, clean apartment closer to my new job, and the rest is sitting in a high-yield savings account for when I finish my degree. My aunts have tried to call me, telling me that my mom is struggling, and that she might lose the house because she can't keep up with the taxes. They say she's depressed and that I should be the bigger person and help her out. But every time I feel a spark of guilt, I remember her laughing at me. I remember her watching me eat ramen noodles for a month, while she had $27,000 of my money hidden in a filing cabinet. The struggle she's going through now is just the reality of a life she didn't earn. She's finally learning what it's like to survive on her own, and honestly, she's right. It's hard. But I'm doing more than surviving. I'm thriving. I've started therapy to deal with the years of emotional abuse, and I've made real friends who don't ask me for my paycheck. I lost a mother, but I found myself, and that was worth every penny. It's funny how people think they can break you and then are shocked when you use the pieces to build something better. If there's a moral to this story, it's that blood doesn't give someone the right to bleed you dry. You have to be your own advocate, even when the person you're fighting against is the one who was supposed to love you the most. I don't regret taking that money for a single second, and I don't regret leaving her to face the consequences of her own actions. Like this video if you were on my side, and think I did the right thing by taking my money and cutting her off. Subscribe for more stories like this, where the underdog finally gets their win. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Do you think she'll ever actually change? Or was I right to go no contact? I'll see you all in the next story.